So, Robin, thank you very much for being willing to share your story, and congratulations on receiving a nomination for a Rising Phoenix Award.
Oh, well, thank you.
You're welcome. Would you mind sharing with me a little bit about the journey you've been on and the kind of the bumps in the road that you've run into along the way?
Okay, all right. Yes, I lost my mother to cancer a few years ago, and then 4 years after that, I lost my 24-year-old daughter, Caprice, to lymphoma, and that was just life altering.
I'm sure. I'm so sorry.
It took me quite a while to process. Yeah, it took me quite a while to process through all the range of emotions after, losing someone that was not only my daughter, but we were very close and we shared a lot of common interests. And she also was very much of a social advocate and volunteer, and she was working on her master's in nonprofit management. At the time she passed away, she was going to Grand Valley State University. So she passed away. It took me a while to get my footing and try to decide what could I do now with my life. I did not want to get caught in the depths of despair. And I had gone to some different grief support groups. And some people, after many, many years, were still very stricken with grief, either from losing a spouse or from losing their child.
Yes.
And I just thought, I really want to have a purpose-filled life that gives me satisfaction, and that when I do see my daughter again, I just want her to say, "Hey, Mom, you did good." So I didn't want to be wasting time, just in the negative space. So
yes.
Then I decided, I saw La Casa in Livingston County, which is a shelter and so much more. They help all victims of abuse, child abuse, domestic violence, and sexual assault under one roof. And we are the only agency in Michigan that does that, and one of few in the nation that really does a whole wraparound program and provides more than 30 services to really help these victims and survivors work through the myriad of emotions that goes with those experiences, and then help give them the tools and the skills and the information and the resources to empower them to heal from trauma and rebuild their lives. So when I saw there was an opening there in communications, which is my field, journalism and communications, I thought this would be a good fit for me, and I can see that they need me. So I set out to talk with them and eventually was hired on, and then just initiated a whole rebranding program for them, and new logo design, new messaging, just a complete series, and which we have continued to build on over the 10 years that I've been there.
Wow.
And it's been remarkable. It's been really remarkable to see the community response and the response from victims and survivors, because we really work to become more approachable. Like the old logo had like shattered glass in it, and a lot of things that looked scary, and a lot of black and white photography. So we really work to turn that around, just as the agency is doing as well, with working with survivors, just having a lot of positivity and inspiring them, and then watching their courage as they go through just really transforming their relationships with their children, and in their entire life frame. So
understood.
That's been so rewarding to be a part of that organization. La Casa helps victims of child abuse, domestic violence, and sexual assault. And they are the only agency in the state that provides complete wraparound services for all victims of abuse under one roof, and one of just a few in the nation that also does this same model, which is so beneficial for victims and survivors because they can come for all the services they need with their children, form lasting bonds with their counselors, and it eliminates transportation problems for them and scheduling problems. In other counties, often victims or their children have to go out of county to receive certain services and to go to different agencies. So we're really proud of the model that La Casa has put forth, and we get some wonderful feedback from victims and survivors about all the different services and programs we provide for them in one location.
I love it. I love what you guys do. And it sounds to me like as you've gotten involved with, the role that you're in, you've been able to help to kind of maybe repackage or reposition the La Casa in the community. And I think that's pretty transformative as well. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
Sure. Can you say a little bit about within Livingston County, how many people does La Casa work with on a regular basis?
Well, more than 4,000 victims and survivors walk through our doors every year.
Oh,
So we serve a myriad of victims and survivors, all age groups, all economic groups, men and women, and boys and girls.
mm-hmm.
Some people don't realize that we serve men, but we have had men stay at our crisis shelter, and some have brought their children with them. Men also are victims of abuse.
Yes.
We also have men who are sexual assault victims, and both male and female military, former military veterans. We have many of those people come and avail themselves to counseling and support. And whether someone has been sexually assaulted, hours ago or years ago, all our services, counseling services, are free for victims and survivors of abuse and sexual assault.
That's amazing. That's amazing. A lot of the people that you see have, of course, multiple things going on at the same time, right? They've been victims of abuse. Some of them have had issues with addiction. Some of them may have been trafficked. So that a lot of these big life transitions overlap. When you run into people who are coming to you for help with abuse that also have these other things, how do you work with other organizations in the community to help them?
I think that's one of the wonderful things about Livingston County is there are so many great organizations, and we all collaborate and work together. So that is very beneficial for victims and survivors as well. So if there are someone who is dealing with addiction, we refer them to the services they would need for that, as well as other support services that they would need for economic help or just many, many things. So it's nice that we have a collaborative environment and we all support each other. And we have really made an effort in Livingston County not to have an overlap of services, so that each nonprofit is focusing on their missions and we're not duplicating different services. And that's been a part of Livingston County's strategic plan for well over a decade. And it's very effective for the community, not only cost effective, but effective as far as changing lives of people who are in need.
Sure. All right. Well, let's do two scenarios for a second. The first scenario is somebody who's been a victim of abuse and needs some help, and they need, they don't know where to go. How do they reach out to you, and what's the best way for them to find you?
We have a 24-hour helpline that victims can call anytime, night or day. That is always available all year long. 365 days a week or a year, 365 days a year.
Yeah.
And we have a website. We are just implementing texting now as well for victims and survivors. So there's always access to immediate help. We also have an on-call program where if there is a victim of either sexual assault or domestic violence incident, our on-call team will go out and meet with them in a safe space, and we'll talk to them about what their options are. They can come to the crisis shelter if they don't feel safe going home. They, of course, can avail themselves to counseling. Our sexual assault center, we do forensic rape kits, and we keep all those kits. We never throw away evidence. We never lose any evidence. We never let evidence go dormant, or as some places, they only keep evidence for so many years, but we always keep evidence. So that allows the victims the choice. They may not, after an assault, want to immediately go through with prosecution or investigations, but they know that the evidence will always be at La Casa, and when they are ready to work with our legal advocates and they would like to proceed with talking to the police, that all their evidence is secured.
Absolutely. Well, let's take another approach then. What if somebody's listening to this story, Robin, and they want to help? They maybe they've been a victim and they've come through it themselves, and they want to figure out, what can I do to engage with La Casa to help other people? What do you recommend for that?
We have so many great volunteers, and I encourage anyone that would like to get involved and be a part of La Casa, either working directly with victims and survivors or working in other areas. We have special events, we have awareness events, prevention events, big community education programs that we do. We are in all the high schools, and now we are in the middle schools and having some programs in the elementary schools, creating awareness and to help prevent child abuse and domestic violence. So volunteering is one of the greatest ways to get involved, and we have a intensive volunteer training program, which is required by any agency of our type, so that everyone becomes very familiar with victim issues and patterns, and you learn things you shouldn't say, and the ways to support victims and survivors. So there's so many ways to get involved. I would encourage anyone to look at our website and look at the volunteer opportunities, from working in the front office. We also have a resale store where people can volunteer to work either behind the scenes or out front, and all the proceeds from that store go directly to help victims and survivors. We also have some employment opportunities for some of our survivors, and we also allow I shouldn't say allow, but we also have made it our policy that all our victims and survivors can shop at the store at no charge for their needs and the needs of their children. So that provides them a chance to pick things that are right for them, that are their taste. It empowers them that way, rather than them. In the old days, there were storage bins in our basement, and people had to they came to shelter and only had the clothes on their backs. Right. They just had to wear what we might have had on hand. So the La Casa collection, our resale store in Howell, really is a wonderful benefit for victims and survivors to be able to access and outfit themselves for work or their children for school, and also their homes with furniture and houseware. So that's been very well received by the community.
I would imagine so. I think the training part is so important as well that you described, because even well-intentioned people who want to make a difference can say the wrong thing and make things and trigger some reactions that you just don't want to have. So I love what you guys do. Robin, I thank you for taking the time and having this discussion. Thank you for all the work you do at La Casa. Is there anything else you'd like to share?
I just thank you for taking the time, and I thank your organization for inspiring people and recognizing the challenges in people's lives and how they overcome them. And that's a great gift for the individuals and everyone around them and our community as a whole. So I really appreciate your organization and what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you. It's nice to hear that. And people like you are, you shine that light of hope, and you're a role model for people, not only for, in the area that you've chosen to invest your time and energy in abuse and recovery from it, but then, taking grief, really deep grief, and choosing to do something to help the community is really good to see. So thank you for shining that light as well.
Thank you. And I think it really helps. As a survivor myself of domestic violence, I have learned so much at La Casa that I did not know about the patterns of domestic violence. And it helps to have that background, having been through it, to really have the compassion and the empathy for what survivors are going through as they try to break away from these domestic abuse situations. And a lot of times they've come to normalize it. And I think that opening of their eyes, that's a journey. And it's something that I really give our counselors, our social workers, so much credit for in working with these adults and children as they work to rebuild their lives.